A complete guide to grammatical cases in Russian. What are cases? The simplest way I can explain this is by saying they are rules that determine how nouns and adjectives will change in a language. These changes show things like who is performing the verb, whom is being acted upon, and to whom you are giving something. English mainly uses prepositions in sentence order to express this information now, but there are a few words that still change for cases. For example, the words who and whom highlighted above. I, me, he, him. I saw him, he saw me. The one performing the verb will be I and he, and the one being acted upon by the verb will be him and me. In other words, the subject and the object. Who are you? Whom are you talking to? Here, who changes form when used with a preposition. Normally, whom isn't used by most people now, though. But with all other nouns, nothing changes. The man saw a cat, the cat saw a man. We use sentence order to understand this. So English only uses cases for pronouns and the word who, but for everything else we use sentence order and prepositions. In Russian, however, they don't have a strict sentence order and instead use a combination of case endings and prepositions. They have 6 cases: nominative, accusative, genitive, prepositional, dative, instrumental. Именительный, винительный, владительный, предложный, дательный, творительный. The example before, I saw him, he saw me, я, меня, он, его, я видел его, он видел меня. This is exactly the same. However, the man saw a cat, the cat saw a man, мужчина видел кошку, кошка видела мужчину. The endings change here in Russian because the cases affect every noun. So the main thing you need to know with cases are: number 1, which endings to use; number 2, when to use each case. Which endings to use? For this you have to memorize declension tables. Here is normally what they look like. I, however, learned through different tables. I used this order. This is for most male nouns except for when they end in this letter. I'm only going to show 3 of these, which are the most common. There are quite a few more of these tables, and I'll put a link to an article about it in the description. Here is an example with the word stol for table. What nom-gen means is that the case could use the nominative or genitive endings. If the noun is alive, then it will be genitive, and if it isn't, then it will use the nominative endings. A table isn't alive, so it will use the nominative endings. Stol, stoli, stol, stoli, stola, stolov, stolye, stolach, stolu, stolam, stolom, stolami. And this is for most female nouns that end in a. Example with the word book, kniga. Kniga, knigi, knigu, knigi, knigi, knig, knige, knigach, knige, knigam, knigi, knigami. They are slightly different. And for neutral nouns ending in o, mesta, 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 mest, mister, mistach, mistu, mistam, mestam, mistami. Here it's like a combination between the other 2 tables. When to use each case. You work out which case to use by looking at the prepositions or the verb before the noun. Prepositions. Accusative. I'm not going to list all these, just the common ones. I'll put another link to a wiki post with all of them in the description. The, to, into, na, onto, into, za, for, or, against, через, in, meaning in time. В комнату, into the room. В кухню, into the kitchen. За коллегу, for the colleague. Об стену, against the wall. Через неделю, in a week. Genitive. Now the genitive case has a lot of words associated with it. There are over 20 or so. Here I'll just list a few. После, after. Без, without. До, until. Вместо, instead of. Кроме, except. Из, from. С, down from. Для, for. Много, мало, несколько. many, little, some. Niet, not. После работы, after work. Без ответа, without an answer. До понедельника, until Monday. Вместо завтрака, instead of breakfast. Кроме слов, except words. Из Англии, from England. С неба, from the sky. Для меня, for me. Много раз, many times. Ничего нет, there's nothing. Prepositional. В, in, на, on, or, about. В комнате, in a room. На столе, on the table. Обо мне, about me. Dative, к, towards, по, way too many meanings. Ко мне, towards me. По субботам, every Saturday. Instrumental. С, with. Nad, above, on top of. Pod, under, beneath. За, behind. Перед, in front of. Между, in between. Со мной, with me. Над домом, above the house. Под столом, under the table. За мной, behind me. Перед зеркалом, in front of the mirror. Между сторонами, between countries. Verbs. The accusative case will follow most verbs. Я вижу его, я знаю его, я читаю книгу, я изучаю русский язык. Let me see, I see, I know, I read, I'm learning. You need to remember the verbs that require different cases after them. Dative, to give, давать, дать. Он дал ему подарок, he gave him a gift. To like, нравится, понравится. Мне нравится есть мясо, I like to eat meat. To help, помогать, помочь. Она помогала Джону, she helped John. Instrumental. This is the worst case for this. There are a lot of verbs associated with it, and I don't even know them all. Быть, to be, становиться, start, to become, наслаждаться, enjoy, заниматься, заняться, to work, study, оказываться, оказаться, to turn out, увлекаться, увлечься, to be interested in, называться, to be called, оставаться, остаться, to stay, работать, to work. Some examples. Я стал доктором, I became a doctor. Я работаю поваром, I work as a chef. Чем ты увлекаешься, what are you interested in? The exception to using prepositions and verbs is the genitive case. Apostrophe S, this is John's book. Это книга Джона. So instead of using an apostrophe S, they change the ending. Of, the size of Russia. Размер России. And instead of using of, they change the ending as well. Adjectives. Adjectives change to match the case and gender of the noun they are describing. It can get quite complicated. Here's the table. So you have to think which gender the noun is, which case, and remember the endings. Here's an example with red. And here are some examples to show you how cases work in sentences. У меня есть много длинных книг, которые я купил в прошлом году. I have many long books which I bought last year. У меня есть literally means at me is, and it's just a way to say I have. At requires the genitive case. Then as we are using the word many, we need the genitive case again. Then we have a linking word to not repeat the word books. This uses the accusative case because if you write it as a simple sentence, book will be in the accusative case. Then in last year, so it needs the prepositional case. Мне нравится разговаривать с моими друзьями. I like to talk with my friends. Firstly, we have in нравится, which needs the dative case. Then we have with, so we need the instrumental case. So my advice, do not try and memorize these tables in one sitting. Look at them occasionally to remind yourself and pay attention to the endings used when listening and reading. It took me many months to be able to start remembering these endings. A note on case questions. These are the case forms for what and who, and what Russian people advise me to use normally to determine the case of something. This is the same as with aspective verbs though, and I've always found them useless. You need to have already memorized everything I've shown in this video to even be able to use them, and therefore I've never used them. But it's up to you if you want to use them or not. Thanks for watching, I hope this was useful.